Hi BookTube, I'm here with a Friday Reads. So I finished Slapstick by Kurt Vonnegut. This was a very endearing Kurt Vonnegut novel. So like if you've read Mr. Rosewater, it's kind of along those lines as opposed to more of his cynical type. There's still a lot of cynicism in here, of course, because it's Kurt Vonnegut, but as opposed to like something like Slaughterhouse-Five and stuff like that. Yeah, it's very like touching story it's about a man who was kind of shoved away when he was younger because he was so ugly with his twin sister, and the bond that they formed together was so magical that they became geniuses, and then they were forced apart. And it's a beautiful story. Yeah. Definitely recommend you read Slapstick. I'm still reading Peace Shall Destroy Many, but I'm much further into it than I was before. I thought I was about halfway through, but apparently I'm not. And this is a good story about a Mennonite community in Saskatchewan, and it takes place during World War II, and the issues around Mennonites around that time were supposed to be conscientious, can't say that word, conscientious objectors. I hope you know what I mean by that. Meaning that when they were called into the draft, they had to say, no, I can't go fight, it's against my religion and my beliefs. And sometimes they were put into like kind of like different roles that still helped the war effort. And it's a lot of the questions around that, like, is that morally right? You know, should we change our beliefs? Should we stick with the old stuff that our fathers and our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers believed? So yeah, it's really quite interesting. Look, there's a lot to think about, a lot of tabs here. It takes a while to get into his writing. I find he's very, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, once you get into it, it's fine, but the initial getting into it can be hard because he doesn't say things directly. He kind of does it in a roundabout way. And then I picked up Primrose Straight by Marina L. Reed, and this is a local author to me. And it's really interesting because she's talking about this certain street, which in my mind is like different, just like 2 or 3 different streets in my town kind of like merged together. Like for example, she talks about this one part of the street where I think there are maple trees in here. I think it's an oak tree in real life, but the roots have pushed up the sidewalk to the point that it's quite dangerous. And I'm like, I know exactly what tree she's talking about, which is pretty cool. It's like actually literally just down the street from me. So that's pretty cool, reading a story that takes place in your town. What else? What is this about? It's just about the people on the street. Like, it's like little, it's not even like vignettes. They're more like, they're like full-on chapters of each person's life on the street. So it's really interesting. One thing I do have to say though is it is very stereotypical. And there's a lot of bad things going on. There's like a lot of abuse and drugs and issues with sexuality. And not that issues with sexuality is a bad thing, but like the way they're being treated by people because of their sexuality is a bad thing. But there's this like overarching kind of saccharine feeling, like over like everything's going to be good and sweet. But it's an enjoyable read, and I'm not going to DNF it. And it definitely is, you know, pretty good story. And then I read some comics. I read them on my tablet. I read the Mythos, the first book in each of the Mythos series, which is put out by Marvel, which is kind of like the origin stories of different people. So I know there's the Hulk, which was quite interesting, and the art is fantastic in them. So I read the Mythos series. I'm just going to show you some of the art here because it is really cool. So there's the X-Men, which is kind of like not the origin story of each X-Men character, but like kind of being in a group together. There's Ghost Rider, which is pretty cool. Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and Captain America. I'll just show you some Ghost Rider pictures here. Like, I think that looks pretty cool. It's all done in really nice art style. You can't really see it because of all the glares and everything and the light bouncing off my forehead there. Yeah, and then I'm reading like just randomly through alphabetical order here. So I read Animal Man, which is an interesting comic from the early 90s, 1991, it says here. And Grant Morrison, he's one of my go-to authors. So it has that kind of stereotypical 90s kind of style there. And Animal Man can absorb the powers of the animals around him. So like if he was around a cat, he could get their agility. And he can fly because he sucks that power from the birds. But it's also about animal rights. Like the first story was about animal testing. And then I think the next one he becomes a vegetarian. And in another one, he fights Wile E. Coyote, which is quite interesting. Yeah, Reiki's not too happy being held. No, I'll let you go. And then the last comic I read is Batman Holy Terror, which is quite interesting because it's like an alternate history where Cromwell wasn't taken out of power in England, and therefore America didn't become independent, and so they're still part of like Cromwell's England. It's still kind of like not too clear on when it takes place. I think it's kind of like 1700s, but who knows. We have Batman facing religious corruption as he also becomes a priest. It was a really interesting take on Batman, and I really enjoyed that. So that's what I've been reading. I've also been binge watching Twin Peaks lately, so that's been taking up more of my time than reading has. It's a hilarious show. Definitely watch it if you haven't already. And what else? Oh, just a quick. I'll save this to the end. I got a new job. I'm so happy. It's doing what I did like a while ago, so I know that, I like doing this kind of stuff. Office life just is not for me. I can't do it. I have to be kind of more independent, and more on like hands-on working with people as opposed to sitting on a phone all day. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you're reading this weekend, and have a good day.